the editor of BrexitCentral, that's Jonathan Iserby, and Jason Beattie, head of politics at the Mirror. Gentlemen, I was expecting somebody to be there. Oh, there they are. Gentlemen, welcome to you. Jason, let's start with you. In a sense, with the mere fact we're having the white paper is a victory for the opposition.
Is it a victory for the opposition? I think the opposition's in terrible pains over this. It's kind of, the party is split quite badly on this issue, and Jeremy Corbyn is probably maybe facing further resignations down the line.
Jonathan, what do you say? I mean, the mere fact that, clearly Theresa May did not want to provide that much detail lest it curb her ability to negotiate.
Oh, I think it's very, very important that the white paper doesn't do anything to compromise our negotiating position. No, that would be extremely damaging to our prospects of having a good deal with the European Union after the negotiations conclude, which is what everybody wants. But, in her speech at Lancaster House a couple of weeks ago, she set out 12 very clear principles of where she wanted things to go, and I'm sure the white paper will flesh out those principles, put a little bit more meat in the bone, but, say, crucially, without giving away anything that will compromise our position.
And that's the point, Jason, isn't it? We can speculate about what's going to be in the white paper, a framework provided by that well-received speech at Lancaster House, well-received by many. But the truth is, it's entirely arbitrary, isn't it? The government can put what they like, pretty much, in the white paper. There's no sense, there's no template, there's no definition as to how much detail ought to be in there. It's in their gift.
This is the big issue. I don't think anybody, particularly on the Leave side, is either willing to acknowledge or is deliberately ignoring the sheer complexity of what we're about to undertake. But probably the more interesting thing yesterday, apart from the vote, was the evidence given by Sir Ivan Rogers, our former permanent representative of the EU, where he spelled out the complexity and difficulty of the negotiations ahead. And, we have still no answers, for example, on what we're going to do about the border between Northern Ireland and the Irish Republic. We have how that works if we don't have a customs union. These are matters of one of great importance because they have implications for the peace process. But because, how are we going to, let's say, prevent free movement of people if we have an open border with one of the EU members? I mean, we need a lot more detail from the government. We're not getting it. I could go on a long time about this.
But in a sense, Jonathan, some of that detail will be teased out come the committee stage, won't it?
I don't think there'll be a huge amount of detail on those specifics at committee stage next week. After all, the bill which is going through, what got its second reading last night with committee stage next week, is simply about giving the government the power to trigger Article 50 rather than the minutiae of the negotiations to come. And I think it's noteworthy, by the way, the vote last night, which saw 500 MPs back that bill, included 346 MPs who voted Remain and backed Remain at the referendum last year. And certainly we at BrexitCentral this morning wanted to pay particular tribute to those people.
Yeah. Jason, you've already introduced, Jason, what happened last night. Let's just focus a bit more. I mean, the extraordinary sight, not just of so many shadow front benchers not abiding by Jeremy Corbyn's three-line whip, but members of the whip's office abstaining. I mean, can you remember anything like that in living memory?
No, and this is deeply problematic for Jeremy Corbyn. And the issue here is, what does he do about this? He struggled to cobble together a shadow cabinet and a front bench team after the last summer's kind of botched coup. And he doesn't want to lose any further allies. And now, if he decides to take action against these whips, and we counted up to over a dozen other front benchers, then he's going to be depleted of yet more posts, which who does he turn to want to do this? Now, in normal times, people want to get on the front bench. They want to become whips because it's a way up the ladder. But when you're looking at a almost inevitable defeat at the moment in 2020 and unlikely to form power till 2025, it doesn't have that much allure, and that's the problem Corbyn is facing.
It's interesting, Jonathan, in terms of party management. Jason presents this image of people just not wanting to be promoted. Nonetheless, there is an opportunity to shine here, isn't there? I mean, if you look at someone like Keir Starmer, who seems to be showing himself to best effect, and there are people scratching their heads and looking at him and thinking, maybe the time will come. So there's a lot at stake.
There is. I think Keir Starmer put in a very admirable and mature performance in the chamber during the second reading debate, because he was a big supporter of Remain, but he, like most of his colleagues, has accepted the will of the British people and voted for the Article 50 bill last night. And as I say, I pay tribute to him and colleagues who did do that. I think Wes Streeting, the Labour MP for Ilford, made a particularly impressive speech earlier in the debate this week, making the very point that to have voted against the bill last night would have been to have rejected the democratic will of the British people, which saw more people vote to leave the European Union than have ever voted for anyone or anything in British political history.
Jason, the big opportunity politically... Yeah, go on. Sorry, Jason, go on.
I was going to say, I wouldn't be too comfortable about Jonathan. I mean, he's praising these MPs. I think a lot of them will now feel they fulfil their duty of respecting the referendum result. And now they'll be more willing to take the fight up on forming and crafting the sort of Brexit they want to see. I think there's troubles as much for Theresa May here as there is for Jeremy Corbyn. A lot of Tory MPs are unhappy about what sort of deal she can get for guaranteeing the rights of EU nationals in this country and UK nationals in EU countries. A lot of them are upset about what's going to happen to various European agencies. The lack of clarity here could again cause Theresa May problems. I think we've seen a kind of phony war so far.
Yeah, it's a phony war that may yet catch fire, Jonathan. And in terms of the people I was mentioning, individuals who might stand to gain, the party, you could argue, that stands to gain the most, given its particularly low base right now, 9 MPs, coincidentally 2 of them abstained, interestingly, in the vote last night, didn't they? But the Liberal Democrats, you could argue, have a lot to gain.
I'm not sure they have a great deal to gain, frankly. I mean, there's 2 by-elections coming up where I doubt they're going to make a huge impact on the vote. As you say, 2 of their 9 MPs didn't actually vote for the bill last night. That's actually quite a sizable proportion given the size of the party. But, as you say, they're starting from a very, very low base. So, in a sense, they will do anything to get from a very low base to a slightly higher base, albeit still a low one.
Jonathan Isby and Jason Beattie, gentlemen, thanks both.